Transiting in the Strait of Hormuz is only possible with SEPA Navy permission.
A cargo vessel traveling through the Strait of Hormuz has been struck by a projectile, according to the British military. The attack took place on Thursday while a ship was sailing along a United Nations-approved maritime route through the strategically vital waterway. And the timing is raising serious concerns. Just hours before the incident, Iran had issued fresh warnings to commercial vessels using a newly announced shipping corridor backed by Oman in the Strait of Hormuz.
This is SEPA Navy warning. Transiting in the Strait of Hormuz is only possible with SEPA Navy permission and on designated routes. If any vessel attempts to transit in the strait without our permission, or AIS off or outside of the designated route, it's responsible for any consequences of any danger. This is SEPA Navy out.
The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center confirmed the attack and said there were no casualties and no environmental impact reported from the strike. But the message from Tehran had already been clear. Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard had warned ships not to transit the area without Tehran's permission. In a newly released video, the Iranian armed forces delivered a direct warning to vessels operating near the Strait of Hormuz. The statement declared that transit through the strait is only possible with IRGC Navy permission and on designated routes. It further warned that any vessel sailing without authorization, operating outside designated routes, or turning off its AIS tracking system would be responsible for any consequences. Now, attention is also turning to the military response in the region. Current aerial tracking data reportedly shows significant U.S. Air Force activity over and around the Strait of Hormuz following the attack. At least 5 KC-135 Stratotanker aerial refueling aircraft have been observed operating in the area, indicating heightened military readiness and surveillance. While Washington has not yet publicly linked the tanker activity to the attack, the increased presence comes as tensions remain elevated across the Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most important maritime choke points, handling a significant share of global energy shipments every day. Any disruption to commercial traffic in these waters has the potential to impact international shipping, energy markets, and regional security. For now, there are no reports of injuries, and investigations into the projectile strike are continuing. But with Iran issuing direct warnings to ships, a commercial vessel now hit on a recognized international route, and increased U.S. military activity overhead, concerns are growing that the security situation in the Strait of Hormuz may be entering a far more dangerous phase. The key question now is whether this remains an isolated incident or marks the beginning of a broader confrontation in one of the world's most sensitive waterways.
On Iran, Mr. President, you said that Iran violated the ceasefire. Will they face any consequences?
You'll find out.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot yesterday, actually 4, we knocked down 3, at a ship. Not an allied ship, but a ship, a very expensive ship. And it was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Will the U.S.
You'll find out.
Will the U.S. respond? What is your message to
Will
Iran?
they respond? You're going to find out.
We do want to bring you an update right now to some breaking news that we brought to you moments ago as Barack Ravid posting this saying senior American official U.S. military attacked Iranian targets in the Strait of Hormuz area. And Reuters is confirming what Barack Ravid with Axios is reporting, saying the U.S. military conducted strikes against Iran on Friday, Central Command said in a statement, adding that U.S. aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites after Tehran's attack on a commercial ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Fox's Jennifer Griffin also confirming this, reporting senior U.S. official tells me U.S. military has begun striking Iranian targets in response to Iranian breach of MOU and ceasefire and attacks on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command posting a statement saying the U.S. Central Command forces conducted strikes against Iran June 26 as a powerful response to yesterday's attack on a command ship that was transiting the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites after Iran hit MV Ever Lovely on June 25th with a one-way attack drone. The Singapore-flagged cargo ship was exiting the Strait of Hormuz along the Omani coast at the time of Iran's attack. The unwarranted aggression against commercial shipping by Iranian forces clearly violated the ceasefire. Furthermore, Iran's dangerous behavior determined freedom of navigation as commerce increasingly flows through the vital international trade corridor. U.S. Central Command goes on to say CENTCOM forces continue to provide safe passage coordination and support to commercial vessels transiting the strait. The U.S. military remains present and vigilant to ensure all aspects of the agreement with Iran are adhered to, obeyed, and in full force and effect. So once again, this breaking news coming in as we're learning the U.S. military has conducted retaliatory strikes against Iran. A live look right now at the maritime traffic there in the Strait of Hormuz. This response, these retaliatory strikes come as U.S. President Donald Trump had said earlier today that Iran is to blame for carrying out a drone strike on a cargo ship.
Iran renews attacks on ships that are trying to cross the Strait of Hormuz.
Fox Business reporter Lauren Simonetti has been tracking movement all along the critical waterway.
Lauren joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning, guys. All right, more incidents in the Strait of Hormuz today. Traffic still flowing, but more slowly. You had 34 vessels cross yesterday, 10 today. That's according to the maritime tracker Kepler. The UK Maritime Authority is reporting that another ship was just struck by an unidentified projectile in the strait. My sources say it's a crude tanker. It's called the Kihu. It was heading to Fujairah with Qatari oil on board. Look, guys, Iran is trying to show it has leverage. It wants to control the Strait of Hormuz, saying any passage through routes outside the framework designated by the Persian Gulf Strait Authority will not be covered by safe passage guarantees. They want ships to coordinate with them and, guys, very likely pay them. These are the warnings they're sending to ships looking to cross. Listen now to audio. This was sent to me by a ship owner. Listen to this.
You are approaching the Strait of Hormuz. You are ordered to leave this area immediately. You must alter course right now and go to the north of Larak Island. You are in range of my missile and maybe fire on you. Over.
The north is where Iran controls, and this verbal warning escalated with Iran's drone attack on the Ever Lovely vessel on Thursday. Of course, President Trump called that a ceasefire violation, and the U.S. struck Iran on Friday for it. The U.S. is sending the message. Number one, you don't break a ceasefire, and number two, you do not control an international waterway, guys.
A powerful message is taking shape over the Pacific, and it's not just another military exercise. China and Russia have once again taken to the skies together, carrying out their 11th Joint Strategic Air Patrol, a move already drawing attention across the world. The long-range bomber drill was conducted over the Sea of Japan, the East China Sea, and the Western Pacific, regions that have become increasingly sensitive amid growing geopolitical tensions. According to China's defense ministry, the patrol was aimed at demonstrating the two countries' ability to jointly safeguard what Beijing described as regional peace and stability. But for many of China's neighbors, the timing and location of the exercise tell a much bigger story. As the joint patrol unfolded, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the military had tracked 10 Chinese and Russian military aircraft entering its Air Defense Identification Zone, or KDIZ, over the country's eastern and southern waters. The aircraft remained inside the zone only briefly before leaving, and officials stressed that South Korean's sovereign airspace was never violated. Still, Seoul wasn't taking any chances. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the military had tracked the aircraft even before they entered the identification zone and scrambled Air Force fighter jets to prepare for any potential contingency. Officials believe the brief entry was directly linked to the ongoing joint air exercise between China and Russia. An Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ, is not sovereign airspace, but it is an area where countries monitor and identify approaching aircraft for security purposes. While entering an ADIZ is not illegal, such flights often trigger military responses because they test surveillance systems and signal strategic intent. The latest patrol is the 11th strategic air exercise between China and Russia, underscoring their deepening military cooperation at a time when security tensions are rising across the Indo-Pacific. So far, Beijing and Moscow have not responded to South Korea's claim regarding the aircraft's entry into the ADIZ. However, the exercise is likely to add to regional concerns as countries continue to closely watch the expanding defense partnership between the two powers.
The Korean peninsula is heating up again, and both North and South Korea are preparing for a future battlefield dominated by missiles and drones. Tensions between North Korea and South Korea are once again on the rise, with both sides unveiling major military upgrades that underscore how rapidly the security environment on the peninsula is evolving. North Korea's state-run television, KCRT, broadcast images of leader Kim Jong-un overseeing a series of weapons tests alongside senior military officials. According to state media, the drills took place on June 25th, the anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War, and were part of Pyongyang's campaign to modernize its missile forces and strengthen frontline combat capabilities. The tests reportedly included an upgraded 240mm 24-tube multiple rocket launcher system, tactical ballistic missiles, and a 155mm self-propelled howitzer. North Korea says these weapons are intended to reinforce its defenses along the southern border, an unmistakable reference to South Korea. The timing is symbolic. Holding the drills on the anniversary of the Korean War sends a powerful political and military message at a time when inter-Korean relations remain frozen and military tensions continue to simmer. But Seoul isn't standing still. In what appears to be a direct counter-deterrence strategy, South Korea has announced a sweeping expansion of its drone and counter-drone capabilities. Defense Minister An Gyu-bak said the military plans to train 500,000 drone warriors while deploying tens of thousands of unmanned systems across frontline units. Around 11,000 domestically produced drones are expected to enter service in 2026 as part of a broader effort to make drones standard equipment for soldiers across the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines.
In the future, drones must become a universal combat tool used by all soldiers rather than special equipment operated by specific units and personnel. The Ministry of National Defense will actively pursue a policy to train 500,000 drone warriors so that every soldier can use a drone like a second.
Tensions are flaring again in the Middle East. Iran claims it launched strikes against U.S. military positions today. Washington has yet to confirm, but Vice President Vance said after an Iranian drone strike on the Strait of Hormuz, violence will be met with violence. Jeff Paul has the latest from Tel Aviv, Israel. Jeff.
Yeah, John, and Iran didn't really specify where in the Middle East it hit U.S. forces, but shortly after that announcement came through, officials in Bahrain, which house a U.S. military base, say they were the ones who came under fire from an Iranian drone attack. Now, all of this happening a day after the U.S. military announced that it launched strikes along the southern coast in Iran. CENTCOM says its forces struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations, as well as coastal radar sites. That military action was in response to Iran attacking a Singapore-flagged ship transiting the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. Former CENTCOM commander Robert Harwood says he expects Iran to continue challenging the strait.
I applaud the administration for taking this military action, and it's a good first step, but they need to flip the coin even a little bit more. I would suggest, I hope, they've reconstituted the blockade, because the economic strangulation had a significant impact.
Now, one of the biggest sticking points surrounding a long-term U.S.-Iran deal is the ongoing conflict involving Israeli forces and the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah. Israel and Lebanon just signed a deal that would see the IDF pull their troops out of 2 areas in southern Lebanon. The idea is for Lebanese soldiers to take control over areas that are currently being held by Israel. Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, tells Fox News it's a gradual process, but they have no motivation to stay in southern Lebanon.
They believe that they actually own Lebanon, but Lebanon belongs to the Lebanese people, not to the Iranian people. So it is about time that Lebanon will gain independence and will assume full control of their territory.
Now, in addition to that Singapore flag ship that was hit on Thursday in the Strait of Hormuz, the British military today announcing that another ship was targeted in that same area. It doesn't sound like anyone was hurt, but the ship did suffer some damage. John.
And the tension continues. Jeff Paul. Jeff, thanks.
We're getting reports from Iranian state media that the U.S. has struck Sirik in southern Iran, in southeastern Iran to be more precise. And this is happening in the same city that was struck by the U.S. About 24 hours ago. The city overlooks the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. now, according to the Axios media, saying that it's carried out strikes in Iran. There have been tit-for-tat strikes between Iran and the U.S. in the last 24 to 48 hours, 10 days after they signed a memorandum of understanding to end the conflict. But clearly the tension's still high between the two sides, especially over the Strait of Hormuz. We'll have more information on this latest news coming out of Iran for you as and when we have more details. Let's
The full extent of the damage is beginning to emerge after Iran's latest retaliatory strikes on Bahrain, with residential buildings in key areas affected despite air defense interceptions. Fresh reports and visuals are revealing the aftermath of Iran's retaliatory missile and drone strikes on Bahrain, highlighting the growing impact of the escalating U.S.-Iran conflict across the Gulf. According to Bahraini authorities, the latest attack targeted U.S.-linked military facilities, including areas near Naval Support Activity Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. While Bahraini and U.S. air defenses intercepted most of the incoming missiles and drones, officials confirmed that debris and at least some impacts caused localized damage. One residential building suffered significant damage after debris struck the upper floors, collapsing ceilings, shattering windows, and forcing residents to evacuate. Authorities said no fatalities were reported in this latest wave, though investigations are continuing. The strikes came in response to recent U.S. military operations against Iranian radar sites, drone facilities, and coastal infrastructure. Tehran says the attacks were retaliation for what it describes as American aggression and violations of its sovereignty. Iran claims its missiles successfully reached intended military targets. However, U.S. and Bahraini officials maintain that the vast majority of projectiles were intercepted before causing major damage to critical military installations. The latest incident adds to months of repeated missile and drone attacks targeting Bahrain, where military bases, energy infrastructure, ports, telecommunications facilities, and civilian neighborhoods have all faced varying levels of damage during the conflict. The escalation has also intensified concerns over security in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's busiest energy shipping routes, where continued hostilities threaten regional stability and global energy supplies. Although a ceasefire framework was announced earlier this month, both Washington and Tehran continue accusing each other of violating the agreement, while military activity across the Gulf shows little sign of slowing. Officials say damage assessments are still underway.
Trump is threatening to attack Iran every day. Fortunately, this is how Americans engage in diplomacy. They write something down, and then within 24 hours, they start violating what they wrote down. Iran was not interested in war. Iran gave the United States an opportunity to correct course, but instead of doing that, Trump is threatening to attack Iran every day. So the time is limited. The hope that Iranian officials have is that they use this limited time to reach diplomatic solution. That's one way. The other way is starting another major war.